with over 16 years of clinical experience. She's not only an EMDR Accredited Practitioner and Board Approved Supervisor, but someone deeply committed to helping others reclaim their power and heal from trauma.
EMDR is a therapy which I'm super passionate about, and it's absolutely been a game changer. And I had a moment at home where I could just visualize myself doing and thinking, oh gosh, I could do this as a career, without me even realizing it back then, but just knowing that I had a calling there.
Yeah.
It was just something that gravitated me toward a healing space. I went straight to university and did an undergraduate in psychology. I did a Bachelor of Social Science and majored in psychology at that stage. I was doing the student life, so to speak, in Australia, where, you know, you live with other people and share houses, and that was my way to get through financially.
To get your finances going through university, because you would have had to pay for those fees, no doubt.
Yep, I definitely did. Well, you were my boss.
That's a silly question. That was a plot twist. I guess a bit of the graveyard shift on the side.
Oh, that too. Yep.
You probably looked at that and thought, and I'm just generalizing, like I did, you probably looked at that and thought, God, I do not want to be doing this full time.
And even as I left hospitality, I went into corporate for paid work in the studies in one of the big four banks.
Yes.
I was doing corporate, but then I'd be finishing off. At that stage, I became a fully registered psychologist.
Yeah. But your specialty is not here. It's not in admin. It's not in ABNs. It's not in GSTs. It's not in accounting.
Again, we're not taught that in psychology. In any part of the trajectory of the career or the study, we're not taught business acumen or all those sorts of things.
I don't think this one's going to stump you much, but it might get you thinking.
I see a cheeky smile there. You're like rubbing your hands in glee.
Well, yeah, you've described that correctly. Actually, that is the feeling.
I can see it written all over your face.
How do you switch off from those, kind of those sessions? Hey, Thirstee Coconuts, I'm incredibly excited to welcome a truly inspiring guest to the studio. Patricia Gallagher is a Melbourne-based psychologist with over 16 years of clinical experience. She's not only an EMDR Accredited Practitioner and Board Approved Supervisor, but someone deeply committed to helping others reclaim their power and heal from trauma. Beyond the therapy room, Patricia is a passionate advocate for destigmatizing mental health in Australia, a runner, a lifelong learner, and a soon-to-be author of The Roadmap to Rise. With lived experiences that have fueled her personal and professional journey, Patricia embodies what it means to be a phoenix rising from the ashes. In this episode, we will dive into her story from her early beginnings through the challenges, the triumphs, and the powerful work she continues to do in the mental health space. Patricia Gallagher, welcome to Thirstee Coconut.
Thank you so much, Rachel, for having me today.
My pleasure. It's great to have you. I want to rewind a little bit and ask if you can take us back to kind of that first reason for what drew you into psychology, and was there a mentor or a moment in your earlier years that sort of drove you towards psychology?
Yeah, so look, I mean, there's a whole gamut of reasons what drew me to psychology, but I think the pinnacle moment was I was in year 11, so back in 2000, and I was studying psychology. I was doing year 11 VCE psychology, and I had a moment at home where I could just visualize myself doing and thinking, oh gosh, I could do this as a career. I was so excited to pursue that. And, I knew the challenges of the profession. I knew the early kind of barriers, I suppose, I'd experienced just because of some of my own lived experience. But I was keen nonetheless to pursue that and just go, you know what, this is a really cool passion and a career, and cool, people get paid to do this.
Amazing.
So I thought, wow, okay, this is really interesting to learn about and work with people's brains and bodies.
Yes.
And help them overcome challenges and mental health conditions was just something I was really passionate about doing.
Yes. And so you say year 11.
Yeah.
And that's for those who live abroad, outside of Australia, that's kind of the second last year of high school.
Yeah, that's right.
And you're going into the business end. Well, you're already well and truly into the business end.
Yeah.
It was obviously something that drew you to kind of studying towards psychology. But did anybody sort of put it in front of you to say, hey, look, this might be something that you might be interested in, say, high school? I know we always used to have like career advisors and all that sort of stuff. Or was it just merely that you'd sort of, in the lead up to year 11, you realized through the other subjects, or maybe you had a calling or an inclination towards psychology by year 11? Because it's quite a, sort of, you're at the tail end of high school.
Yeah, that's right.
Was there anything before that that sort of led you towards that path?
Yeah, it's such a good question. I guess my late mother had a lot of mental health challenges and lived experience of mental illness. So I guess in a way I became a bit of an informal psychologist, if you like it, by that stage, or what came before me doing that, the subject of psychology. So I guess I learned that I was really good at talking to people and listening.
Right.
And having a bit of a lived experience sense through my mother, but also even my lived experience of going through a bit of depression, anxiety, and I think from childhood trauma as well. So without me even realizing it back then, but just knowing that I had a calling there was just something that gravitated me toward a healing space.
Right.
Prior to that, I thought, maybe I'll go do, fashion design or, become an author.
Yes.
But it's interesting because you mentioned that my plans to write a book. So in a way, it's like I've had a bit of a full circle moment, really.
Yes.
That's still a bit of a work in progress, but
Yes.
I'm really keen to write that in due course. So
yeah.
But that they're the main kind of catalysts or paths to getting to where I'm at today. But certainly by that stage, having a bit of a clear epiphany about what I wanted to do and chasing that further.
I love that. And we're talking about your high school years.
Yeah.
What was that experience like for you, particularly kind of the back end of high school? Did you enjoy going to school?
Yeah, I did. Like I found high school better and easier than primary school, just because a lot of us matured by that stage. All the bitchy bullying years were behind, and
yes,
I did. I really enjoyed, and I found my sense of, I guess, agency and identity a little bit more, at 17, 18.
Yes.
And freedom.
Yeah.
Which I didn't really have beforehand.
Yes. And would you say like, kind of going through the lived experiences in your younger years, you mentioned your mother and so on. Would you say that kind of helped you decide definitively, actually, this is probably going to be the person that I also want to be in high school?
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. It was like, this is a sense of what I want to do, how I want to help people.
Yep.
Even though I wasn't her, I guess, psychologist per se, it felt like in a way I was.
Yes.
And I realised that was a bit of what we often call in psychology parentification, where in a way I kind of had an adult role where she was more vulnerable.
Yeah.
Nonetheless, it really still made me think about minds and bodies and how people's moods work, and it just got me really interested to go down that path.
Yeah, I love that. And I think what I was also meaning to say was that I imagine that would have sort of forced you to grow up a lot quicker as well, right?
Yeah, it certainly did.
Yeah, because I know that not everybody, sort of goes through experiences like that to then, sort of be that grown up by the end of high school.
Yeah.
And so then you worked through high school, decided that you actually wanted to pursue a life in psychology.
Yes.
You graduated from high school. Then did you go straight into study? Obviously, you would have had to go to university and do a bit of study.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I didn't take any gap year or anything like that.
Oh, wow.
So following year 12, which is outside Australia, that's the last year of high school.
Yes.
I went straight into university and did an undergraduate in psychology. I did a Bachelor of Social Science and majored in psychology at that stage.
Yes. And uni life.
Yeah.
What did you think of it?
Yeah, I liked it. It was really interesting. Less structure.
Yes.
So that was an adjustment to get used to. But no, that was good. It was interesting. It was just another level of freedom and another stepping stone toward my career.
Yeah.
At times it felt a bit boring because some of the topics were being rehashed from high school in regards to psychology. Like some topics I already knew. But it was interesting because progressing through uni and then going to do a fourth year, which is essentially like an honours year or postgraduate diploma year, where I did my thesis.
Yes.
That was good because I got to do some stuff that was a bit different, and then I got to delve deeper into psychology as well, like doing bit more research and
yes,
just on the precipice of doing placements and working with clients and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I see. And did you work? Did you work a job in the meantime to get your finances going through university? Because you would have had to pay for those fees, no doubt.
Yep, I definitely did. Well, you were my boss.
That's a silly question. That was a plot twist. Well, I don't think I was. Well, I was your boss on the floor.
Yeah.
That's true.
No, I did
What
hospitality.
was that like for you while you were going to university? How were you?
It was good. It was good. It was interesting because I learned a lot of people skills in hospitality that really
Yes.
gave me extra confidence to do psychology and learning to work with different people,
Yes.
especially with customers in the graveyard shifts I was doing back
Oh
in
my
the day.
gosh. I think you were the queen of the graveyard
Yeah, I
shifts
think so.
ultimately. You did that exceptionally well, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
And through those times, oh my Lord, I remember those days of overnights and they were so
Yep.
tough on us, weren't they?
They were.
The crowd that we would have to put up with
Yep.
were unforgiving. And
Yes.
goodness, honestly, I didn't even know if I was going to be alive the next day. It was so bad. And so you said uni life was, sort of a mixed bag of
Yeah.
anything really. You traversing through the changes to the freedom that you got during university.
Yeah.
Were there any challenging times throughout that? Because you would have had to persevere and, did you find any moments during uni where you were like, oh, I don't know if I can finish this, or
Pretty
were you
much.
just, what was that like for you?
Yeah, it was interesting. I had to really look at what I wanted to do. I was doing stats, which is part of psychology,
Yes.
and maths is not my strong suit.
Right.
So I really had to reevaluate and go, can I do this?
Yeah.
But I did. I persevered. I had to repeat the stats subjects.
Yes.
And whilst that was a bit of a pain, I just persevered anyway because I'm like, okay, well, my vision of doing this as a career is still bigger than these challenges.
Yes.
And my goals and my values are actually bigger as well. So I just made sure that, I practice a bit of what we call self-talk in psychology, which means, I was able to just say, okay, come on, you got this, you can get through this. This is really challenging, but it's going to pass.
Yeah.
And this is just temporary. But yeah, it didn't come without its challenges and without at times throwing in the towel and saying, no, stuff this.
Yeah.
But I just persevered and thought, no, I'll keep going. This is, there's more to psychology than this. This is just a bit of a hurdle to get through
Yes.
as part of the course requirements in Australia.
And I think if you're not statistically inclined, statistical analysis and that kind of research can be a little bit jarring for people.
Yeah.
And I know that because I worked a number of years in data. And so unless you are a lover of statistics and data,
Yeah.
it's not something that you can sustain
No.
for very long. And so if I think about the challenging times that you sort of followed, you had to bear through in university, what were some of the coping mechanisms that you might have employed to, kind of get you through those years?
Yeah. So I guess self-talk, really just encouraging myself, seeking out support from staff,
Yeah.
supervision, supervisors at that time, mentors, people older than me that had become psychologists at that stage, more experienced folk,
Yeah.
friends, extended family members.
Yes. And I guess a bit of the graveyard shift on the
Oh,
side.
that too. Yep.
You probably looked at that and thought, and I'm just generalizing, like I did. You probably looked at that and thought, God, I do not want to be doing this full time. I'm definitely going back to
Pretty
psychology.
much.
Okay, and so uni life was, kind of you got through all of that.
Yeah.
And then what did you do after university? Did you go out on the field or did you have to then, I think you mentioned you did a bit of placement as well as part of
Yeah,
that?
that's right. So I had to meet certain hours to become a psychologist.
Yep.
And even as a probationary or trainee psychologist, I had to meet extended hours.
Yes.
But it was really good because with placements, I got to work in a number of different fields and different areas. I did clinical, I did agency work, I did community health, and just things like that. And even as I left hospitality, I went into corporate for paid work in the studies in one of the big 4 banks.
Yes. Oh.
And I think that was good too because that opened my eyes in terms of corporate or organisational psychology, even though I'm
Yes.
not an organisational psychologist
Org
per
site.
se.
Yeah.
But I got to do some facilitation and training, and I still credit those years in time, that training in regards to confidence to become a trainer in certain areas.
I see.
Yeah.
And so, how many years did you work in? Well, did you get the exposure to corp psych in the corporate sector?
Yeah, so I was there for 6 years. And it just
Really?
started off doing kind of call center and customer service work, just
Yeah.
following on from hospitality. And yeah, just again, it put me in good stead to work with different people and all of that. But then it graduated and progressed into different areas, like facilitation, a bit of coaching, a bit of QA to assist in the quality of calls and things like that. So it's just interesting to diversify, and that really was a nice segue into some of the other areas of psychology as well.
Yes, gosh, what a great entrance to, kind of where you are today to then go into corporate sector and,
Yep.
get some exposure in org psych.
Yeah.
I don't know if I got that wrong before, but org psych, what a great entry into that field because, I imagine you were still a young lady at the time and you would have had to face into some adults and
Yeah.
who you might have thought, oh gosh, these guys are adults. Like, what am I dealing with here? Sort of that was a time where you then it then solidified your desire to move through into, your own sort of practice
Yep.
and so forth. And so you spent 6 years working in the corporate sector. Where did you then venture beyond that point? Like, what was the deciding factor for you to sort of come out of that, sort of industry and move through to, sort of psychology?
Yeah. So when I was doing corporate, I was doing that part-time, but I was actually finishing off my placements also at that stage. So I was doing corporate, but then I'd be finishing off. At that stage, I became a fully registered psychologist.
Okay.
So I was doing other placements in other areas there as well. So I'd be doing, clinical work as well in a clinical setting where I'd be seeing clients in a clinic as well as doing corporate. So I was sort of balancing the couple of areas at the one time.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
What an experience. And if you would look back at those times, what might you say were perhaps one of the challenging moments for you, given how, fairly young you were? I mean, you were
Yeah.
still in your mid-20s by then, or,
Yeah.
I don't think you would
late
have reached the
20s.
age of
Yeah.
30 by that time. But
Yeah.
if you reflect back on those years, what might have been one of the challenging moments for you?
I think having to juggle things.
Yes.
Having to juggle things with I had so much exposure doing psychology in different realms and areas of work, but at that stage, I was still unsure in terms of my professional identity, like what type of clients am I going to serve and all of this. I wasn't sure of that, even though I was sure that I wanted to do psychology and become a psychologist, and I was right on the cusp of becoming a fully registered psychologist at that point. I still wasn't sure like where I wanted to go in terms of work. Did I want to do community work? Did I want to stay in corporate? I wasn't sure. And then I delved into private practice. I was a subcontractor at a private practice that has since closed. But that got me interested in the autonomy of working with clients in a bit of that sort of business model.
Yes.
That practice model, which then led me to, you mentioned before, my own practice, which is Gallagher Psychology.
Yes.
And I opened that up 8 years ago. And by that stage, I was fully
Congratulations.
registered at that point. But yeah, I think that evolution was really nice because I was able to then discern and work out what my professional identity was, who I can niche in serving my clients, where I can work in what areas. You mentioned I work in trauma before, which is true. I do. I work a lot in the trauma recovery space.
Yes.
So yeah, along that, yes, but dealing with those challenges, that was tough because I had to really kind of juggle what I wanted to do.
Yes.
And really decipher what I wanted to do at that stage. So that was a bit challenging.
Yes. That sounds like quite an amazing journey. And if I think about kind of, so you said you opened up your own practice 8 years ago, which is, I think, in your early to mid 30s.
Yeah, it would have been mid 30s at that point.
Yes.
Yeah.
If I go back to kind of your transition from, 6 years in corporate, moving into the decisions around, I don't know if specialization would be the right business model or the right model for you. Were you also doing this while living at home? Had you moved out from home and you were living on your own at that point and sort of trying to, finance yourself through life in general while figuring out where you were going to go?
Yeah. I was definitely out of home at that point. I was just
Right.
I was doing the student life, so to speak, in Australia, where you live with other people and share houses, and that was my way to get through financially.
Yes.
Because I was only doing paid part-time work at that stage.
Yep.
And I was offered full-time, but it just wasn't going to work in terms of me finalising all the hours I needed to do to get all my training done, all my hours for psychology done.
Yes.
So no, I just lived out of home, different share houses at that stage, but that was okay. Again, it taught me independence. It taught me agency and what I wanted to do, and I could do this. I could do this thing called life.
Yeah.
Just learning about my capabilities at that stage.
Yeah, that's so incredible. I say this only because I remember I had deferred because I made it to university, but decided to defer, and then I went into full time work. And if I think about myself back in when I was doing full time work, I don't even think I could have fathomed doing study while working and figuring out life in general. So I just think hearing your story of, kind of how you managed to figure out your pathway while living life out of home, paying the bills and all that sort of stuff is pretty cool.
Yeah, thanks.
So you then, you then decided the business model for you, or the model for you, would be in private practice.
Yeah, that's right.
Was that a difficult step to take from where you'd gone from? So, I mean, what were the things that you had to do to get to that point?
Yeah, so when I was fully registered, you have to in Australia get what's called a Medicare provider number, so that clients that come to see you can get the subsidy. So I had to, set up an ABN, a business number. I had to set up a website, and just sort of work out my vision. But again, at this stage, I enlisted, who's actually a dear friend of mine now, but she's a business coach and mentor. She's basically a psychologist that works with other psychologists to help with their branding and help with marketing and website, and really carving out a bit of a niche, which, I'm really pleased that I did that, because it's also, again, based off my own lived experience of trauma. So when it all was put together, it really clicked, and that was really cool. So, that's how I got into all of that, really.
So those are the logistics for how you went into private practice. And you credit much of that to your enlisted psychologists, those who've been there before.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you might have done differently at the starting in? Because it sounds like you were smart enough to find someone else to do the things that you weren't necessarily experienced in. But if you look back, would there be anything that you might have done differently?
Probably not logistically or practically, but certainly from a confidence perspective.
Right.
Even though with all my lived experience and all my kind of adversity and overcoming those, I still lacked confidence and self-belief, really. As a young psychologist, I had that imposter syndrome, which I think we all grapple with on some level. So mine was quite prevalent at that stage, where I wasn't really sort of charging my worth, or I wasn't really enforcing boundaries or cancellation fees and all of that adequately to fulfill all my business expenses. So, if I could tell my younger self that, I'd love to say to her that, it's okay, you got this. It's not, the sky's not going to fall in if you enforce, more confidence and more boundaries early in your career.
And if I think about you, I mean, that's a really great way to reflect back and remember what you might have told yourself, you will tell yourself if you had to redo it.
Yeah.
That confidence piece is so huge, isn't
it's
it?
massive.
Again, although you're coming out of your 20s, you're into your 30s by that point, well, close to, it's still not an easy thing, because you wouldn't have practiced that throughout, because it's almost like you're jumping into a whole new world altogether. Like, yeah, sure, you might have had the, that kind of practice of life, more or less, and dealing into different people, different stakeholders, all kinds of people of different backgrounds. But the confidence piece, isn't it? Like, that is just, what are the things that you draw on to sort of go, actually, no, I can charge this much. I can say to people that this is, where I guess what I deliver and all that sort of stuff. How did you get over that hurdle?
Yeah, again, through lots and lots of mentoring, which in a way became a bit like informal therapy.
Right.
But I've definitely done a lot of therapy myself. And I actually am still doing work on myself a bit at the moment. But
Yes.
yeah, just I think reaching 40 plus as well. So I'm now 42.
Yes.
And it's true, when you reach your 40s, you really develop a sense of agency.
Yes.
And you really clarify and crystallize what it is that you don't give two shits anymore.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
You just don't, you care less what people think. Like in my 20s and 30s, I think we all do this, where we really absorb so much of people's emotions and opinions and voices. And it's just like,
Yes.
I can now decipher and set boundaries of that now.
Confidence, that's so important coming out of your 2 decades,
Mm-hmm.
20s and 30s. Nobody ever prepares us for that. Nobody ever sort
No.
of says, I mean, you do, okay, maybe there are parents who teach their children to be super confident and they stay with them their whole journey, but that's not a luxury for many people,
It's
right?
actually rare.
Yeah, it's not a luxury for people.
Yeah.
And I think having the presence of mind to think about your confidence and all that sort of stuff you're having to deal into is just such an important skill for people to. Is it a skill or is it an I don't even know if it's an attribute or.
It's a trait, but it's something that requires a muscle. It's like you build the muscle of confidence.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so important. And so that's what you would tell yourself.
Yeah, pretty much.
If you were to look back, you
Yeah.
would say to yourself, you've got this. Like,
Believe in yourself.
back yourself, right?
Trust yourself.
Yeah. 100%.
Trust your gut.
Yes.
Stop questioning yourself. Stop second guessing yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that because I think it's so important for any younger generation, current and emerging, to remember that the confidence, your confidence at that point in your life is kind of the backbone for what keeps you going and pushes you through those challenging times, isn't it? But it's not easy to get, is it?
No, it's not. It's not. Because, there's all this societal messaging, social media, as you mentioned before, Rachel.
Yes.
It can erode so much confidence, especially where people develop a lot of comparisonitis.
Right.
It's like this sense of, I should be doing X, Y, Z, and why aren't I doing this? And, I'm not good enough. And all this self-talk that people grapple with, but particularly people in their 20s and 30s. I mean, I certainly did.
Yes. Likewise. And, if I wasn't comparing myself to others, I was being compared by others, which isn't helpful. And it feels almost like it's coming from everywhere.
Yeah.
And you're having to put up that kind of that shield, against the naysayers or the people that say that you don't have what it takes, or even your own self-talk that doesn't, come to the front of mind for you. That's such a good pointer to call out. So you're an EMDR, accredited I just this is becoming preposterous because I can't even say the word practitioner. I'll take that question, retake that one.
Yeah, go for it.
So you're an EMDR accredited practitioner.
Yep.
For those who are unfamiliar, can you explain what an EMDR is?
Yeah.
And how you've seen it change over the years?
Oh, yeah. So it's interesting. I'm actually off to Adelaide tomorrow for the EMDR Australia conference. So EMDR is a therapy which I'm super passionate about, and it's absolutely been a game changer. It stands for eye movement desensitization reprocessing. So if you think about when we dream, we go through rapid eye movement. So our eyes are darting back and forth without us realizing it. So the therapy mimics that mechanism, but whilst we're fully awake and in control. And so the idea is, if you think of unresolved or unprocessed trauma, and we'll take the analogy of a linen cupboard.
Okay.
It's like towels and sheets, when things are unprocessed, they keep falling out. They can manifest as depression, anxiety, panic, etc. And so they keep, we stuff them in that linen cupboard because the things are so painful.
Right.
We avoid. And it's like, okay, well, I'm just going to put them there. I don't want to deal with them. But what happens is they're unresolved and they manifest as such. Whereas you've got the second linen cupboard or the file, and you can take out the towels and sheets, etc. And those things are still crappy, but they don't hurt on a deep visceral level anymore. They're just like factual.
Okay.
And then we can fold them back in and they don't come out anymore. They don't keep spilling out. So in other words, EMDR is a tool or a therapy or a treatment designed to treat like PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, but it can also treat a lot of childhood trauma. And a lot of mental health conditions actually stem from unresolved trauma, or what's now called complex PTSD these days.
Okay. And so EMDR is a technique that you're very passionate about, and that's around eye movement desensitization
Yes.
and reprocessing. In that technique, for lack of a better word, using that technique, what do you think has been the reason why you felt that, that was something that you truly believe could help people with their trauma and kind of that healing process? What do you think was the thing about that technique that kind of drew you to it? Because there are many techniques, I imagine,
There are.
that you could totally go with, but that one in particular?
Yeah, it's interesting because before I started the training 6 years ago in the modality,
Yep.
I was skeptical too. I was like, oh, what's this eye movement crap? What does it do? How does it treat and heal trauma? But honestly, in the 6 years I've been practicing it, it's been a game changer because talk therapy for trauma doesn't quite work.
Yeah.
If I can be so bold to say that. I mean, and that's not to say that therapies or modalities like cognitive behavioral therapy, acceptance and commitment therapy don't work. They do. But it doesn't get to the root. It doesn't get
It's
to
one
the
aspect of it.
Yeah, that's only one aspect of it.
Yeah.
But with trauma, you've got somatic or body sensations, you've got emotions, you've got cognition, and you've got sensory. And so with PTSD or even trauma, unresolved trauma, it can come back and manifest as a nightmare, a flashback, or some sort of random sense of feeling like you're back there without any kind of logical explanation. So EMDR works from the bottom up rather than those other therapies that I mentioned that are top down. So this bottom up approach works so much more effectively because it gets to the root of an issue. It desensitizes trauma so that it becomes just a factual event rather than a hurt that still reverberates. And it can help enhance something that is positive or neutral. Like, for example, I'm safe now, or it's over, it's in the past now.
Yes.
But it produces that on a deep visceral gut level.
Yes.
Rather than sort of thinking about it, because there's often a disparity between our thought and our emotion and our subconscious. So it marries up the subconscious with the cognition or with that thought, which is extremely powerful. And I haven't seen any other therapy do that, but EMDR does that beautifully.
That's super interesting. I think Francine Shapiro in the 1980s was onto something.
She was.
And so it's essentially addressing the root cause.
Yeah.
But is it a program that sort of is work in phases? Like it's not a one-time event that you work through with your clients, right?
100%. So you're right, Rachel. It is phase by phase. So phase 1, is really getting to know someone and doing a bit of a history taking. Phase 2 is doing resources. So making sure that the tools and techniques or the tools to regulate emotions are intact.
Yeah.
Because processing these traumas are great, but they're taxing and they're hard.
Of course.
So having the bandwidth to process these things requires having ample tools at your disposal just to make sure that when, poo hits a fan, you've got an ability to regulate your emotions effectively.
Yes.
So that's really important with regard to the safety and the efficacy of the therapy.
Yes.
Assessment is phase 3. So really assessing what a target memory is, and its associated negative belief, a positive belief that could be replaced, and I guess where the feelings might be felt in the body. So, and then we go into phase 4, which is desensitization, which is use of eye movement.
Yes.
But it could also be done it's called bilateral stimulation, by the way, which is one of the main mechanisms. So that's using left to right sensory input, whether that be visual, whether that be tactile, whether that be sound as well. So it could be a mixture of all the things. So, I mean, it's often popularized in things like TV shows where they use light bars. But predominantly we use eye movement. So that's probably the most effective, but through tapping or fast tapping of across the shoulders and tapping on the floor as well can really help get that momentum for a lot of people in terms of its effectiveness of bilateral stimulation, because some people can't tolerate eye movement for various reasons.
Yes.
Then enhancing and installing a positive belief or a neutral belief. Then doing a body scan to really make sure that it is all cleared. Closing off the session, reevaluating the next time and making sure that memory is processed, and or going back to, if needed, to re-clear, if something becomes stuck.
So that is just, that to me sounds like a really holistic plan.
It is.
Phase plan, isn't it? It's not just addressing, as you say, the top-down piece in the conversations that you have typically with a psychologist. It's really going to the heart of the cause, isn't it? And I love that it combines not only with healing your trauma, but it also combines some of those. And please stop me if I'm, sort of not explaining this well enough, but my understanding. But it also it brings in positive experiences.
It does.
And I love that factual piece that you talk about, that, we don't always have to ruminate on, kind of the trauma that we're dealing into, isn't it? There are aspects in your life that you can draw from that can take you to the positive spaces. Would that be right?
Absolutely. So a lot of the research and the science behind EMDR uses what's called an adaptive information processing model, which is the AIP network. So it posits that we do have an inherent natural ability to heal and draw out adaptive information. Because the mechanism lights up, so to speak, the adaptive information that, so it can draw out the positive things. Like I often get clients say to me, I remember that memory or that time where, I had a positive experience with so-and-so and, it wasn't all that bad. And, despite what they did there, and I can recall a time in that period, despite it being traumatic, feeling quite wholesome and fun.
Yes.
And the trauma no longer impedes on or creates a stuckness to in that stage.
Yes. I love that. Gosh, just when you think, well, at least me, just when I think I'm fine with everything I do and my mental status and my mental health, I learned just here in this conversation that I could be doing more.
Right.
Is it almost this thing where it could be I guess EMDR could be something that you do through your life. I guess it's not, even if when you come out of it, you can always do more, isn't it? Because life is just always ever evolving, isn't it? And you're always going to be faced with new challenges. I think
100%.
As you get older, you're faced with new challenges in life, and you never stop experiencing life's challenges. It just means that you're going through another phase of life as you get older in your decades. Would you say that EMDR is flexible in that it could continue to work for you as you get older in life? Would that be true?
Absolutely. It's such a flexible therapy.
Yep.
And it doesn't exist in a vacuum. It can be integrated and used with other therapies and approaches as well. I mean, I know a lot of people like to do what's called somatic work, like yoga and body-based and therapies that can really help. So you can always go back and forth with EMDR. It's certainly not rigid. It's really flexible.
Yes.
The really cool thing about it too is it not just approaches and treats and heals past trauma. It actually also works with present-day anxiety or present-day challenges.
Is it almost like real-time?
Yeah.
Not fixed, but a real-time sort of mechanism that you can leverage?
Totally. And it also addresses future fears.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So it can be proactive, it can be real-time, it can be historical, you can work through historical issues, all that sort of stuff.
Absolutely.
Gosh, that sounds like a very compelling argument for why you would use EMDR or why not EMDR.
Right.
What has that process of personal healing taught you through being a practitioner?
Well, it's
big question.
Yeah.
Hard-hitting questions here.
No, it's so good. It's taught me that healing is possible. It's taught me, it's been a joy and a thrill and an honor to see a lot of my clients go through the transformation.
Right.
with EMDR, but it's also it's actually given me hope and reinvigoration into the field of psychology and therapy, because I guess like I was doing other things and I couldn't quite sort of shift through or see full transformation. I'm like, okay, something's missing.
Yeah.
But having EMDR in my toolkit or my toolbox, and for me personally, having done and doing EMDR personally, I can look at events now and I don't feel hurt by them anymore.
Yeah.
And just having that visceral kind of real time reference really helps me inform the work I do with clients. But just sort of seeing it time and time and time again consistently, it's just incredible. It's really reinvigorated my purpose, my meaning on a personal level and certainly on a professional level.
It sounds like what it has done for you is that it's helped you evolve, I guess, your practice, and it's helped you kind of always challenge the status quo of how we treat those with trauma.
Yeah.
I love that you kind of revisit your practice and go, after 16 years of experience, you kind of go, there's got to be more out there. We can't just be married to the one solution.
No,
right?
that's it.
Yeah.
That's
I love that. I love that.
Thank you.
So I want to talk to you about your Instagram post around choosing themes
yes.
and intentions. I think it is over choosing that over New Year's resolutions.
Oh, yes. Yes.
And your theme this year, I think, is reclaim.
Yeah, that's right.
Can you share what that means for you professionally and personally, for what that's going to mean for you in this year?
Yeah, so reclaim for me is basically reclaiming things perhaps that were absent in my life that I'm starting to get now in terms of abundance.
Yes.
Professionally and personally. I'm really feeling that in 2025.
Yeah.
So the reason I put that post up is because a lot of people feel like they'll put a New Year's resolution out there and they would go, well, that doesn't work.
100%.
And no, it doesn't work because it's so rigid.
Yeah.
Whereas a theme, it kind of is like an anchor. It's like a value. You can kind of, no matter what's happening in terms of emotions or other, life stuff that gets in the way, you can kind of come back to a theme and it's like, okay, well, this is my central point. Okay, no matter what's happening, okay, what's my theme?
Yes.
What's my anchor? So that's why I picked that, and I've done that for the last few years because, it anchors me and it grounds me as well.
And it's almost, I love that. I love the idea that I think New Year's resolutions is such an outdated, sort of practice that people tend to carry on. And I've moved on from New Year's resolutions because none of mine have really worked anyway. I say that, but maybe a couple have. But I love the idea that reclaim and that theme is an anchor for you.
Yeah.
Would you say that it's almost close to, say, having values that you stand true to? And you kind of go, well, what are my values? I hear integrity a lot. I hear, I guess, how hard you work and your accountabilities. I hear accountability a lot. Would that be kind of the same as would reclaim and, kind of sticking to a theme, if you like, be similar to having values and sticking to those, like what falls within your values rather than necessarily being, as you say, rigid to one single goal? Would it be that, you sort of, you can flex in between that given that you have an entire theme to work through?
Yeah, 100%. Exactly that. It just crystallizes like no matter the busyness or the chaos of life, and then I can go back to reclaim as a theme or as a value. It's exactly that. It works in the same way.
Yes.
Having that to just grab onto and go, well, regardless of what's happening, okay, I'll go back to this theme. I'll go back to this value.
Yeah. And would you agree that anchoring change around a theme is more sustainable than, say, your traditional New Year's resolution?
Oh, absolutely. Because this helps foster, I guess, self-compassion. It helps foster something that is more realistic. Because I think that's the other reason why New Year's resolutions don't work. They often breed self-criticism. It's like, well, I'm a failure. And that spiral and that rumination, as you were saying before, which, it doesn't work. Because it's of the rigidity, but also because of the self-criticism that it produces quite often, or a kind of like a self destruction in a way. It's like, well, stuff it. I failed, so what's the point? And then I'm just gonna eat all these foods, or I'm just gonna not exercise. And oh yeah, I failed in that one moment. So it's often measured. Well, that measure of success is only tied to one day or 1 week, which is not
Yes.
realistic. Whereas the theme accommodates for more flexibility, greater self compassion, self respect,
Yes.
esteem, and all of those things that are far more flexible and realistic.
Yeah. And it sounds like it also helps you do some more inner work rather than necessarily the it's sort of do more intrinsic work rather than necessarily those external factors that many of us, when we're setting New Year's resolutions, tend to just pick out of a box, or we look at the other person and we go, oh, they're losing weight. Maybe I should lose weight. But it's not really anything meaningful, is it? It's not
No.
really addressing kind of the you. I love that. And so I think for those thirsty coconuts that are out there, I think if you're looking at January 1, definitely think about a theme, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I love that. Can I talk to you about Phoenix rising out of the ashes?
Please do.
So you often describe yourself as a phoenix rising from the ashes. Can you talk to me about a time when you felt like you were rising out of a, kind of hitting a low point?
I've experienced many of those. So I don't think there's one pinnacle moment. I guess I've had several of those. But I think when I've come out of bad relationships, or
Yes.
again, I was saying before about, throwing in the towel with psychology at one stage. At that time I sought therapy, and
Yes.
I'd come out of my own ashes at that point when I experienced depressive episodes and pretty
Yes.
dark spaces. But I was, proactive to go, you know what, despite that, I just have to dig myself out of this hole.
Yep.
And come out and I think, Maslow's hierarchy of needs is one framework in psychology,
Yes.
but it often talks about, in order to thrive and have self-actualization, which is your ability to really live in accordance with your full potential, you really have to meet your needs of safety
Yes.
and basic physiological and self-esteem and other kind of needs first. And I
Yep.
think for me, doing psychology gave me those tools as well to sort of draw upon and go, you know what, I need to meet my needs. I need to make sure that I can get the fundamentals right and come out of some dark spaces and be really proactive. So it took a lot of soul searching and a lot of self-talk.
Yes.
But I was really able to come through and rise from ashes of my own trauma and my own dark spaces as well.
Yeah, I love that, Pat, because one of the things that I don't know if it's a myth that people think that psychologists don't do work on themselves, that you were just born a psychologist and then all of a sudden you're all knowing.
Yeah.
But it's not necessarily the case, isn't it? Like you've got to do, you're human beings just like everybody else, right? You've got to do your own work. And I love that you can step back from your own profession and kind of reevaluate where you are in life. Would that be kind of the case? That's kind of right for you?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it just makes me feel more authentic, and I think that'd be probably one of my points of reference or one of my points of difference, I suppose. But having said that, I know a lot of my colleagues are pretty authentic and pretty open about their mental health and walking the talk.
Yes.
And there's more and more of that, in social media, where a lot of my colleagues and friends are talking about their struggles as well. I think we all used to be quite scared because of our regulatory bodies, that we'd feared we'd get into trouble if, we were like struggling with mental health. But actually we're human, and as long as that doesn't impede on our work with our clients or doesn't create any kind of, a safety issue with the public, then that's absolutely fine. It's encouraged, actually. Authenticity is the name of the game, and being authentic helps people draw you in. It helps be a draw card for clients to go, oh, wow, you've got this lived experience, and that really helps me connect with you and create that rapport. And it's such an icebreaker, and it creates that trust quite quickly.
Yes, so true, because it is one of those things where you think you're going to speak to somebody like a complete stranger about your life, and you don't quite know whether they've been through the same experiences, right?
Yeah.
And that's where the authenticity, as you say, comes into play. And I want to talk about kind of the having to sit in front of clients that have, gone through quite a bit in their lives, that is not an easy thing to do.
No.
To take in all that trauma, you can't be superwoman every day.
No.
So the question I have for you is, what has resilience come to mean to you today in your profession?
Yeah, so I think through doing all my inner work has built my thick skin, having prior past experiences working in hospitality, corporate, and people and service-facing roles. People-facing roles has really helped my thick skin in dealing with people and different walks of life.
Yeah.
And I guess just being able to see there's a vulnerability underneath their presentation. Like everyone's got a story to tell.
Yeah.
So I think that just helps normalize things for me and hold that space accordingly.
Yes.
And I think developing my niche. So it's not like I just serve everyone. It's not like I work with every person out there because
I see.
yeah, because I'm not going to enjoy that. And also I don't know if I'd be able to hold that space effectively.
Gotcha.
Whereas when you sort of work out who you can serve, that really helps you go, yeah, I can work with that person really effectively. And mind you, that came later in my career.
Right. After
as I was saying before,
much practice. Yes. Sorry.
Oh no, that's right. Just like that professional identity stuff. I didn't know all of that until later. So, but I'm really lucky because I have a lot of mechanisms in place myself. Good friend network and family network, and just doing things that I love and things that give me a lot of joy. That really help fill my cup to be able to withstand and give me the bandwidth to hold those spaces.
Yes. And I think that's so important, isn't it? I guess pick and choose wouldn't be the right term to use. It would be to identify the individuals that you can truly help.
Yeah.
It's not about helping every single person where you can't give your 100% effort
100%.
into. It's actually about making sure that you not only think about your resiliency or what you can have the capacity to take in and hold, but it's also then about you being able to fully be present and help that individual and see if the methods that you've tried and, that have been tried and trusted or you've tested over the years is something that can help that individual because it comes to at the heart of actually helping people, isn't it?
It does.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so, yeah, I think sort of deciphering and sifting, who I can help and who I can't has really clarified that for me as well.
Yeah.
And yeah, people that light me up, I see that in my diary, like clients that I really, really enjoy working with that is in itself mitigates vicarious trauma.
Yes.
Whereas, if I worked with people I didn't like, there's not going to be effective work. Plus it's just going to create vicarious trauma for me as well. So
yeah, that's so true. So for those who you work with who are having presenting issues for whatever it is that you deal into, is it always obvious? I mean, do you have to work with them for quite some time to then really understand what their presenting issues are? Because at first I imagine, they wouldn't have given you enough information at first.
No.
It's the techniques that you leverage, right, to get to the heart of the problem.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
EMDR being one of them. And
EMDR huge. But I think even in EMDR, like getting to know someone or an earlier phase of the therapy sometimes requires patience and a bit of time to get to the heart of.
Yeah.
And or sometimes people don't want to get to the heart of, they might just want to treat or work with a particular area first. And it's only in seeing something positive or a good outcome that they might go, okay, I'm ready to do the next level of work. That it just depends on the person I'm working with. When it requires me to be really flexible and agile in tailoring therapy plans accordingly.
Yeah, I see. So part of that is around kind of your profession, or part of your profession is also about growth and learning. And you seem to thrive outside of your comfort zone because, this is not an easy job for everyone and you have to be able to find ways to thrive as you have done. What advice would you give somebody who is, I guess, struggling to take that first step into discomfort for growth?
Yeah, I think it's just about really showing up to those emotions and really learning to name them and acknowledge them, learning to be, I guess, flexible in that, but also learning a lot about self-compassion. A lot of people have these very high standards that are quite rigid and, again, unrealistic, that leads to a sense of feeling not good enough. So I really encourage someone early in their career to be very open to help, really open to mentoring and supervision.
Yep.
Finding what works for them.
Yep.
Like it's okay for them even in early career to be asking questions and working out what they want. Because I think a lot of people don't feel like they've got the consent or the permission to ask questions. But asking questions is fantastic because we can then really delineate what's going to work and what's going to not work. So I just encourage anyone to seek the help they need and not feel ashamed by that. Have a lot of self-compassion, a lot of grace, just enjoy the journey, enjoy the learning because it's, that's the fun part and really working out, okay, well, cool, I get to do this and maybe I get to do this better. But it's so much fun when that's done with play and being flexible.
Yes, I love that. That's such great tips for anyone struggling. And then as someone passionate about destigmatizing health, mental health, destigmatizing mental health, what do you feel are the most important shifts that still need to happen in Australia? Because I was going to ask you about the statistics of how successful we are in the country at addressing mental health. And I don't know if you would have that at hand. It'd be a difficult thing to, sort of obtain. But what do you think are those important shifts that we need to make in this country based on what you've seen to date?
Yeah, greater accessibility. So with the federal government, they've introduced through Medicare, Medicare rebates for psychologists and a lot of different therapy providers. But the problem is there's only 10 that are covered in a calendar year. That's not enough.
Yeah.
During COVID, it was 20. But then, unfortunately, that got peeled back to 10. So accessibility is often an issue. So there just needs to be a lot done in that space to improve people accessing seeing a psychologist or a therapist as well.
Yes.
I think the silver lining of COVID was that people realised, oh, gosh, I really need to go get some help for my mental health, or they realised that they had a mental health condition, or for the first time in their lives, they realised that, oh, crap, something's wrong. So it's opened up people's eyes in that regard. And so people now want to see someone a lot more these days. In fact, a lot of us have had wait lists and what have you, but it's just been so hard because wait lists have often impeded on accessibility, but cost as well. So that's been a massive barrier. And I think the other thing too is visibility. Like there's still a lot of stuff that happens behind the curtain, so to speak, that still people don't realise. Like a lot of myth busting still needs to happen around mental health that, we still perpetuate and, create these stigmas of things that just are, it's 2025, for goodness sake.
I know. And COVID in Victoria was such a difficult time for us here in Australia.
Sure was.
Especially since we were locked up the most in the world.
Yep.
That in itself actually was a traumatizing event for me. My freedoms being taken away. It really did play on my mental health as well, just for that period of time.
Yeah, it would have.
And it did involve a lot of inner work in terms of my mental status as well, of coping through that time. If I think about kind of that time as well, I think men in particular went through, I think, I'm not entirely sure what the statistics are, but I think the suicidal rates of men during COVID had risen. And I do think the accessibility to therapy and help on the mental health side of things would have greatly helped in those instances, because you had instances of fathers or just, men in that time actually just not be able to go and do the things that they would do regularly on a day-to-day basis, be trapped in their homes and then think, gosh, now I've got all this time to think about my life, and now I'm stuck with all these with these people that I don't normally spend 5 days a week 24/7 with.
Right.
That's such a did you ever see anything coming out of that period? Were there any casualties coming out of COVID that you'd seen as a result of the lockup?
Yeah, look, there's a lot
lockdown?
of there wasn't. I didn't see so much close to suicidality per se, thankfully, or in my practice anyway. But I did see a lot of marital separation, marital divorce rates went through the roof. Domestic violence went through the roof. Family violence also went through the roof because everyone was in close quarters. So that was quite a dangerous time for a lot of people, which is, quite sad. And certainly I still saw a lot of that
Yeah.
in those times, which
Yes.
is rather unfortunate.
Yeah, true. In your busy world, I imagine you've got projects underway. One of those, obviously, the book we're talking about.
Yeah.
How do you how do you manage the clinical side of, kind of future projects and thinking about, what to do on the side to either not reinvent yourself, but kind of stay in, stay relevant, because I imagine there are emerging changes that are coming through that you would have to think about. How do you balance that clinical side with any kind of future projects that you might want to think about doing?
Yeah, and I think the thing with the clinical work is, as much as I enjoy it, what I want to do eventually is potentially just taper it down a little bit, so I can
Okay.
still do the clinical work and still see my clients, but I want to be able to. And I am. You mentioned before, Rachel, that I'm a Board Approved Supervisor, so I am. So I want to increase my services to include a bit more supervision. I'm actually in the process of becoming, and it's just waiting a final approval, but I'm applying to become what's called an EMDR consultant,
Yes.
which means I can supervise and quality assess EMDR therapists in regards to their practice and make sure they're doing clinical proper work.
Yes.
So just to sort of build a personal brand, so to speak, and really still keep my clinical work, but have
Yes.
the arm of doing other creative things like writing my book,
Yes.
doing speaking events, training more. And I often do training in terms of helping a lot of psychologists with the training of domestic violence and trauma, because a
Yes.
lot don't feel confident in that space.
Yes.
So it's real pleasure to help them to help them learn more about trauma and the nuances of DV and
Yeah.
family violence that they should embed in their clinical work. So
Yeah.
just having another arm or a branch there really is something I'm working towards.
Yes. And I imagine all of that might be in the lead up to, kind of, as you say, increasing accessibility to help in the mental health space,
Yeah.
particularly with the statistics that we're facing into in Australia.
Yeah.
And that is such an important thing, mental health, because it impacts every aspect of your life. Not
Does.
only your career, obviously your personal life and relationships, all that sort of stuff is so, so important. And if I think about the future, when we talk about future psychologists, for anyone out there thinking about pursuing a career in psychology, what advice would you offer from a practical and emotional support perspective?
Yeah, and I
I think
think
you might have touched on it a little bit earlier, but
yeah. I think because as psychologists, we don't learn the business models, we don't learn business acumen early. So I just recommend go get a mentor, go join a tribe of psychologists that are like-minded or therapists that are like-minded. And the good thing is, like, Facebook and social media will have certain groups and platforms to really help leverage that support. So go get the support. Don't be alone in this. Don't be afraid to ask questions and seek that help.
yeah,
We've got to walk that talk. So I think it's really important just to, be really proactive in that. And you're not alone in feeling imposter syndrome. I think everyone does on different levels and varying degrees of career experience. So, you in early career, you really feel that. But rest assured, you can feel that in later parts of your career as well. And I've lessened that now because of all the work I've done. But at times when I'm doing new stuff that's outside my comfort zone,
that's true.
I can still feel a pang of that. And so, just work through that, and just practice what you preach, like go seek the help, go be flexible with your emotions, practice things that bring you joy and self-care. All those things are really be encouraging a lot of young, early budding psychologists as well. And go get a good accountant as well, especially if you're going to
A good accountant.
especially with business setup. I've got an excellent accountant, so she really helps me make sure I'm in check and compliant.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing when you have a business or a practice, you sort of learn to see yourself as a business owner.
Yes.
And that doesn't come early in the career; it comes later. But I think wearing that hat and owning that is really important. So just
Yes.
getting all the relevant and appropriate advice is
Yeah.
certainly my advice to early career psychologists.
Yes. So Trish, everything you've said there has just been super amazing.
Thank you.
If I think about your work when you're in the heart of it and you've had client after client after client.
Yeah.
How do you switch off? How do you go home and go, I can't think about that story was so intense, I imagine.
Yeah. Yes.
How do you switch off from those, kind of those sessions?
Yeah, and it's so interesting. I get asked this a lot. I think for me, I have a conscious, like a metaphoric container.
Okay.
And we often talk about this in EMDR to really make sure things are left in a container in the room. So I have my own container and I just leave things in the room, which takes a bit of practice. It's not easy, especially at the start of a career, but I'm really used to that now. And that's not to say that things don't still shake me at times.
Yeah.
If need be, I'll also reach out to colleagues if I'm really shaken and I can't quite leave things in the room, or I'll seek supervision. But I guess when I go home, I make sure that, my notes, my admin are more or less done, so I don't have to think about the work in my home environment where possible. And sometimes that does happen, and it is what it is, but I'll just try and make sure that, I have a bit of a routine before I sleep. I will have a nice mindfulness-based shower. I'll wash off the day. And I'm really conscious in that too, and making sure that I just wash all that stress off and wash the day off, so to speak, and then I'm fresh for sleep. And it doesn't really encroach on my bedtime routine or anything like that. Sometimes I'll dream about work, but it's nothing I can't handle. So I think, I'm really proactive in my own self-care as well in regards to, when I play hard and do fun things, I do fun things.
Yes.
Like I incorporate a bit of travel in my routine as well, a bit of interstate travel, work-based, but nonetheless still really good to socialise and things like that.
Yes.
Just use my brain in a different way can really help switch off as well.
Yeah.
And practicing things like I run, I do a lot
Yes.
of fitness, and that helps me really switch things off as well, really get me in the
Endorphins
zone.
running. Yes.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I love that. You talked about travel just then.
Yeah.
Did you do a bit of travel in your younger years, or is that something you desire to do more of
I
internationally?
internationally. So I think as a student, you sort of don't have the finances to do a lot of travel,
Yes.
back then. But I do a fair bit of international travel now. In fact, I was in Vietnam and Cambodia for 2 weeks.
Yes.
At the end of January, early Feb, and that was fantastic. So yeah, it was lots of fun. But traveling interstate and stuff as well is really cool. But yeah, I just have more time now as well, I suppose. Whereas, when you're a student, you've got to really concentrate.
Absolutely. Yes. Do you have a particular location that you're aiming for next? Is there something on the plans?
Yeah. So my best mate and I are looking at Bali early next year, just for a
yes.
nice kind of relaxed retreat style
Totally.
holiday. But if I can pull it off next year, I'm hoping either Europe or Japan.
Yes.
And I'm really excited about either of those two locations because they've been on my bucket list for so long.
Yes. Yes. And I think if our economy is good to us, I know the dollar's not doing too well, especially when you're comparing it to the euro.
Right.
Hopefully the stars will be aligned for you in that sense. I'm going to jump back to, you talked about the sorts of things, the really cool things that you talked about to me, which struck a chord with me, is that business side of things, right? Because you were talking about, how important it is to have an accountant, have mentors, and all that sort of stuff. The business side of things, when you think about administration, is almost the last thing that people think about taking as seriously as your actual business.
Yeah.
Or is the actual service that you're delivering, or a product. That's so important, isn't it? Because that is almost kind of learning another skill.
It's like learning another language.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And sort of how long did it take you to realize, oh, well, okay, I've got this in hand now. I've got, this side of my business in hand. How long did it then take you to realize the importance of the other aspect, the administrative aspects of your business?
Yeah, and again, it was through working through this stuff with my mentor. She said, you need proper setups with admin. It's just stressful for you having to juggle all the things when you really shouldn't be.
Yep.
Just focus on your clinical work and, do your branding or whatever, but get someone who can look after your admin.
Yep.
And by that stage, I already had a good accountant. So that side of things was already established. But just having other things business-wise, like, I registered for GST late in the piece and I didn't really twig to do that. But of course I needed to do that. But I didn't think about that until my mentor made that aware to me. And so having those things came later, but it's good to realize that because it's so important. And again,
Yes.
we're not taught that in psychology in any part of the trajectory of the career or the study. We're not taught business acumen or all those sorts of things. So it's really good to, have all those things established to have a sustainable practice.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so cool because what I'm hearing here is try and get a network of people who know what they're doing in certain areas because you've got your specialty,
Yeah.
but your specialty is not here. It's not in admin, it's not in ABNs, it's not in
No.
GSTs, it's not in accounting. It's always important to try and find the network of people that can help you in those areas, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's probably one of the best things you can do
Yeah.
to be successful in this area of work.
Yes. Yes. All right, Patricia. So we've spoken about all things deep.
Yes.
Now I'm going to lighten things up a little bit. I'm going to ask you some rapid fire questions, okay?
Go for it, Rachel.
And so I want you to give me the first thing that comes to mind, and you're not allowed to overthink this, all right? So I've got about 7 rapid fire questions for you.
Go for it.
Quick top of your head. What's your favorite musical that you've ever seen?
Oh, gosh. Let me quickly think. Oh, I've drawn a blank. I'm just trying to think. Musical. It's because I've seen so many.
Yes.
Let's just say Wicked.
Wicked.
Yeah, I enjoyed that last year.
Yeah, I loved it too. It's such a good musical.
Yeah.
100%. And there are so many, so I don't blame you for thinking about which one's your favorite one. Because I also liked Hairspray.
Yeah.
Hairspray. That was really good. Did you see Hairspray when it came out?
I did, but also I should mention Chicago. I really
Yes.
liked that last year as well.
Super cool.
Yeah.
Chicago, Hairspray, Lion King, Wicked, the list goes on. I love musicals.
Same.
If my partner Zane and I could get to a musical, hands down, we'll do it. But I
Yep.
think we've missed a few as well, but that's okay. They tend to come around.
Oh, they're happening all the time. I think Beetlejuice is playing
Ah,
at Regent Theatre in Melbourne at the moment.
yes.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Next question.
Yeah.
I know you told me about going to Europe, but if you could jump on a plane tomorrow,
Mm-hmm.
what country would that be to go to?
Japan.
Japan.
Yeah.
Okay. And why is that?
I learned
What
a
about
bit of-
Japan intrigues you?
Yeah, look, I love the food. I love their minimalist style and their culture. Like
Yes.
that intrigues me because it's so opposite to how I live and what we're used to in Australia.
Yes.
But yeah, I just love that lifestyle. But love their food. I love how polite they are and how respectful they are to people.
Yes.
And the language intrigues me. I learn a tiny bit of the language in primary school.
Okay.
So I'd love to leverage and learn more.
I love that. I thought you were going to say you also love the cats in the cafes. Is that where anime was born as well?
Apparently, yeah. And manga. Well, the cat cafe, yeah, I'll certainly go visit as well. I reckon it'd be a bit of fun.
Yes, and I saw that their train stations are so, like, when you line up for the train, they're so organized.
Organised and efficient.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
We could learn some lessons here in Victoria from
100%.
their systems, couldn't
Yeah,
we?
absolutely.
Next question. Is there one book you always recommend to people starting their healing journey?
The Gift of Therapy by
Okay.
Irvin Yalom.
Gift of Therapy by...
Irvin Yalom.
Okay.
So he's
And
an
why is that?
exquisite writer.
Yes.
He just normalizes all the what he calls the microcosms of
Uh-huh.
learning about the process when you're doing the therapy work that often isn't taught or maybe is missed or the nuances aren't really illuminated. But this book just does this beautifully
Okay.
and has really helped me shape even my early career. Just the process of the process, like really being attuned to working with a client and noticing what's happening in the room. So he really talks a lot about that in the book and literally the gift of therapy. It really is. So yeah, I'd recommend that book.
Yes. And I personally think through our conversation, you're a gift of therapy as well.
Oh, jeez.
So the next question I have for you is, what's your ultimate lift up spirit song? What's your go-to lift up spirit song?
Oh gosh, I'm just going to pick a random one, and I just got tickets to her and
Oh.
Lady Gaga, Born This Way.
Yes.
Yes.
Gosh, that sounds so it sounds so in line with everything you're doing as well. I love that. Next question. What's the one small thing you do for yourself that makes a huge difference?
Oh gosh, I mean, I'm really fortunate because I do a lot of things, but I think it's just like it's the understated stuff. It's a really small stuff, but like just having a nice, mindful, meditative shower after work. It sounds so simple and so simplistic, but I just find a lot of gratitude in that because I just like, I wash the day off and I get to feel fresh and relaxed before I sleep. And I really, don't take that for granted.
Yes, there's something about water hitting your body, isn't there?
Oh, it's
Especially in the shower.
visceral.
I don't know why, but I found at times taking a shower is where some of my good ideas are born.
You and me both.
Right.
Yeah, because I actually did a deep mentor program with my mentor. It was called like a boss. That was her program. But I got that idea of doing that in the shower. But I'm able to process stuff in the shower. So it's really cool.
Yeah, mindfulness.
Yeah.
And kind of being in that zone of, just allowing the water to hit your head.
Pretty much.
Fall through your body.
Yeah.
I know you've got to wash yourself at some point.
Yep.
But I guess if you're in the shower, you may as well take time to really take in that healing process, if you like, because there is some
totally.
healing properties to.
There is.
I think anyway. I'm just making that up, but I feel like
there
helps
is.
me.
There is 100%. And there's some research, and I guess it's holistic, but it's sort of come into the scientific space with cold showers as well and how they can reset the nervous system. I think Huberman does a lot of podcasts and work in that area. But, ice baths, there's a reason why water is so healing. And I guess me being a Piscean in my star sign,
Yes.
I really do enjoy water. So it's just those things that matter a lot to me that are really special.
Yeah, I love that. I love that I just made that up and that you confirmed that to be right to some degree.
It's really informed. So, yeah.
I love that. I love that. Next question.
Yeah.
Which famous psychologist would you love to sit down and have a deep chat with?
Alive or dead?
Oh, alive or dead?
Yeah.
Tell me.
Well, look, Sigmund Freud for many
Yes.
of the obvious reasons.
Yep.
He's long gone, but I would have loved to have picked his brains in regards to all his concepts around the subconscious and the id and the ego and the superego. I'd be really curious to pick his brains on that. He was an interesting man, so
Yes.
I'll go with Freud.
Yes, I love that. Lucky last question. What's the piece of advice you have ever given someone? Or actually, the flip side of that, what is the one piece of advice that someone has ever given you that you remember that's sort of sat with you?
Yeah, I think, again, the theme of self-compassion. Be self-compassionate.
Yes.
Like, enjoy the learning journey. And I think just the sense of don't take things personally.
Yes.
Don't sweat the small stuff because you'll
Okay.
learn stuff along the way. And what you learn in that given time is going to be revamped and, you're going to relearn it all over again. So don't take that quite so seriously. Don't think that's going to be the definitive thing you'll learn. You're going to learn more and upend your knowledge and skills and learn more again. And that's okay.
Yes.
So be prepared to do that.
Yes, self-compassion is so important. I'm hearing self-compassion, self-care, self-confidence.
Yeah.
Lots of work in your inner self, all that sort of important, juicy stuff.
And the agility too, and just being agile, being flexible, and not taking things too hard or so literally.
Don't be so rigid
Yeah,
in
don't be
your
so
approach
rigid.
to things. Be kind to yourself and allow yourself that sort of space to, kind of move left or right or
Yeah.
back or forward.
Pretty much.
Yeah, much like what you were explaining in the EMDR process.
Yep.
And so this is a question that I ask all of my guests.
Yeah.
I don't think this one's going to stump you much, but it might get you thinking.
I see a cheeky smile there. You're like rubbing your hands in glee.
Well, yeah, you've described that correctly. Actually, that is the feeling.
I can see it written all over your face.
Either that or I'm proud of a question that's probably
I
not going
reckon
to be
both.
too enlightening. So you can see on the screen there's a picture of an open coconut.
Yes.
And so that leads me to this question. If coconut were a success, what are the 3 layers of that coconut that would make it a whole or make it success for you?
Interesting. Well, I think the hard shell.
Yes.
The hard shell gives you the thick skin,
Okay.
the malleability of the inside of the coconut, like the flexibility and the softness. So a coconut kind of represents a hard and a soft,
Yep.
and being able to have that balance, or yin and yang. It's interesting because you'd probably be familiar, Rachel, with Brene Brown, right?
Yes.
So she talks often about this sense of, or this concept of having strong back, soft front. So
Yes.
having both hard and soft.
Yes.
So a coconut represents that for me.
I love that. I love that. So the 3 things, the 3 layers for success for you, or for the coconut that works for you
Yep.
at this point in life.
Yep.
Because I'm going to ask you back.
Yeah.
It's been such a cool experience. Is having a thick skin,
Yep.
being flexible, and then remembering that there's a hard and soft side of
There
things.
is like that
address.
fluid, you know?
Yes,
Just the softness.
fluidity.
Yeah.
Yes, it's super important. Goes back to your piece around themes.
Yeah, yeah.
And, you know, kind of having that set of values that you can have flexibility within and work through. Patricia, thank you so much for sharing your journey, your wisdom, and your heart with us tonight.
Oh,
It has
Rachel,
been
thank you.
Such an absolute pleasure to sit down and talk to you. All 3 things, Patricia and psychology. Thank you again for joining Thirstee Coconut.
Oh, thank you so much, Rachel. Wonderful insight and questions.